Welcome back to the Beautiful Violence podcast, the number one spot for the number one sport. This week, we're coming in hot to UFC 296, which is obviously the final pay-per-view event and the final event in general for the year of 2023. And what a year of MMA it's been. In this episode, we're going to be chatting all things UFC 296. We're going to be talking about the back-to-back press conferences that are incoming that should be very entertaining. And we're going to break down the main card and a few other fights that catch our eye and provide some bets. So with me today, as always, we've got my co-host, Luke. Lukey, how you doing?
Hey, Dylan. I'm doing good, mate. Just trying to survive up in here in North Queensland at the moment. We're in cyclone season for anybody not familiar with Australia or North Queensland this time of year. A lot of tropical storms, and at the moment, Cyclone Jasper's just coming through, so it's a bit windy. If you hear any noise in the background, that's shit blowing over. So,
yep.
Yeah.
If you hear any of mine, it's actually just my aircon, which is just up there. So, but I'll take the cyclone excuse as well.
Yep.
Hope the roof stays on, mate. So before we get into the good stuff, quick plug, shout out to the sponsor of the podcast, Provide Picks. The best MMA tipping service in the business. If you want to check out more, you can head over to providepicks.com/join. Anyway, enough waffle. Let's get into it. So UFC 296, I think the optimal place to start for clickbaiting purposes. He's not the main event. He's not. He is on the main card. I thought he might not even be on the main card.
Yeah, shouldn't be.
Coming into this, this event, the whole media rage has been Ian Garry. He's very, very hated at the moment. He just can't seem to put a foot right, really, a step right. It just seems like time after time he's just shooting himself. It sort of seems like a two-step. One step forward, two steps back sort of situation, and he's just putting his foot in it constantly. So I'm loving it. I'm loving him seeing him get flamed. He's really irked me for a while. Luke, you want to tell sort of the viewers if they haven't been paying attention what's been going on?
Yeah, so if you want to get a real rundown of like the response, check our video over an Ascendant MMA
Good plug.
YouTube page. We love to plug it. It's going pretty well. But the response was to the original allegations that MMA Guru kind of exposed, as well as other MMA media pages, and they found that. Ian Garry, it's not a hidden secret, but his wife was acting on some. Well, she might have been, a bit predatory in her initial getting of Ian Garry, which not many people really knew or had track of. We knew she was an older woman. We knew they had married, all this stuff. They have a kid now, all that stuff, but. No, there was some more things that came to light with that MMA Guru and other people ended up finding out, which was that she's 14 years older. She initially wrote back in the day a book on how to be a wag, which for people who don't know means wives and girlfriends of like athletes and sports stars getting young athletes that are on the up and coming and marrying them so you can, get a bit of the wealth, and from using your kind of adult experience. So it's very, very weird situation. And Ian Garry was, I think, 23 when they met. And she was 30. She would have been 36 or 37 or something. Yeah. And 34 or something. It doesn't matter. But it wasn't a very good situation. And then Ian Garry decided to not clap back, but let his wife do all the talking. And she ended up posting a big rant that just started blaming misogyny and, MMA fans as dickheads and all this stuff and tried to bring in suicide from past celebrities. And it was just the weirdest situation, and all of it leading up 4 weeks out from Ian Garry's probably biggest fight to date.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation. Look, at best, there's a lot of weird coincidences that sort of make you think, gee, is there something awry in this relationship? And at worst, it's, potentially what it looks like is completely manipulative. We didn't even mention her ex-husband being involved in the team as a nutritionist, potentially living with them, having him on a vegan diet. There's just a lot of red flags that continue to come up. I don't know if you've seen it, but he put out a bit of a response video and like a sort of highlight hype video today. And again, it is probably the shittest response that you could have asked for. Like, it's a really well done montage clip video.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was just going to cut in here for half a second and say the weird thing about that was, much like how he doesn't do his own talking, the montage itself has been shown to be very similar to another montage. I can't remember who the athlete was, but...
Yeah, it wasn't that's one from back in the day.
Yeah, and it was a very strange word for, like, it was pretty much edited the exact same, copy for copy. It's 99% plagiarism, basically. The only difference is Ian Garry's in the video. And that was just odd as well, seeing him post something that isn't even his own, image, basically. Yeah,
I did read that apparently his wife may have been involved in that campaign back in the day with the Adidas one, so maybe there's a bit of a callback there. But again, the hype video is just painting him as a victim. It's like him saying, you hate my family, you hate this about me, you hate that about me. No one, hates anything about you. They're just saying they have rightful criticisms. And that's what happens when and that's what happens when you put yourself in the public eye and release these videos. And you want to be a superstar and you want to, antagonize other fighters. This is how the circle works. If you don't get involved in that in the first place, it's not going to come around and bite you in the ass. So that's sort of the pretense behind that. We're coming into UFC 296, where he's been getting absolutely flamed by the internet for probably 2 weeks now. He's kind of went radio silent, blocked all comments, and now he's released this video. And then I believe Media Day is tomorrow, Thursday here in Australia. But I'm not sure what time it's going to get uploaded, but Thursday in Australia. And then the press conference should be Friday. And then there's also another press conference with some other fighters who aren't on 296, like Strickland, Volk, Dreykus, a few of those other guys. So, what do you think coming into this press conference? Do you think Ian will show up? Do you, how do you anticipate that going? Just in general, not even just about Ian Garry.
Yeah, I think that the conference is going to be hilarious to see, and the post-fight interview, I assume everyone's going to have the question for Ian Garry. Like what's the deal? What's the resolution? What's the plan? And then I hope they ask him about Vicente Luque, because it seems like he's been focusing on the wrong kind of villain. He's been focusing on the internet trolls and less on his opponent that's going to be across from him on Saturday, Sunday night. So it's going to be very surprising. Obviously, the big ceremonic conference with Colby and all the others is going to be interesting too, to see how he gets on with that, because I feel like he's going to go on the defensive and kind of pussycat away from what he's been showing. What about you, Dylan? What do you think?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the actual fight with Luque in a little bit when we get into the fights. In terms of the presser, I think he's up. He's really up against it, isn't he? He's got Luque there, who is his opponent, which he's very lucky that that's his opponent, to be honest, because if it's anyone else, they're probably going at him 100%. Yeah. But Luque seems like a really nice guy, doesn't like the trash talk, doesn't do that sort of stuff. So probably not got too much.
Christian.
He's not got too much to worry about there. But I mean, he's got Leon, who he's in a, sort of, I wouldn't even call it a beef, but he's in an entanglement with, just got kicked out of his gym, blah, blah, blah. And then you've got Colby, notorious shit talker, who'll be prepping lines, rehearsing lines, just getting ready for that. I can imagine there's going to be some zingers from him. The only way Ian Garry sort of gets through this in a decent fashion, he has to just go heel. He's got to embrace everything that comes at him. He's going to just say, I don't give a fuck, and just go head first into it. Otherwise, he's just going to look, if he keeps going with these responses where he's painting himself as a victim and saying, I did nothing wrong, blah, 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 just embrace it. Be the bad guy. That's a marketing tactic, and that sells. And I think that's the only way he gets through it. But I'm really looking forward to the press conference. I think it's going to be a ripper.
Yeah. The only thing I would like to say about that is on the press conference also is another guy that I think some would say, turned heel, and that's Paddy the Baddy. He had a very, he drove high and fell fast, so he also is going to be on the card and the presser as well. And I think it'll be different to see what he does, because he took a big sharp turn after the Jared Flash Gordon fight, and he kind of didn't like everybody's criticism of him, and he became a big heel, and people didn't expect that because they didn't think he'd act like a, right dickhead, straight after a fight that a lot of people thought he lost. But now he's kind of redeemed a lot of himself just from laying low and trying to kind of not say much, because I think people have now, and he's lucky, people are now taking Ian Garry as the target for this event, and he has had the blessing of a lifetime to not be the main target, not be the big dickhead, not be the heel of this event. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what Ian Garry does, because, being a heel hasn't worked for Paddy. He tried it and people just said he's a dickhead and they moved off of him. And he has since kind of taken back his stance on the Gordon fight, kind of said that he didn't win it, didn't look good, blah, 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 which was the complete night and day difference to in the octagon, where he basically took all the booze and was like, get stuffed. But now Ian Garry, if he picks to be a heel, maybe it works for him, maybe it doesn't. It might sound too Conor McGregory. It might just be fake. It's a tough road for him. He's got a lot of fight on this Saturday, Sunday, other than the main fight that he has,
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, because if you remember as well, Paddy is sort of the first person who ignited this beef with Ian Garry as well, because he's the one that came out and said Leon Edwards head kicked him and sent him to the hospital and kicked him out of the gym because of that. So there's another person that might be going at Ian Garry. Yeah. But I think the main difference between Ian Garry and Paddy Pimblett is just the skill level. Like, no one's ever came out and said Ian's a bad fighter or, doesn't have the potential to be the champion. He really does. Like, he's super, super talented, got a big frame. He's progressing nicely in his career. So I think that the fact that he's winning fights and winning well does him, puts him above that sort of Paddy level where he came into the UFC and you thought, oh, this kid could be all right. And then you see his striking defense and some other questionable things. And you're like, all right, this guy's more UFC marketing push than anything. Whereas Ian Garry does have genuine talent. So I think there's a main difference if he does want to go that heel path. But yeah, the next few days are going to be really interesting. I dare say we're going to have a lot of content to go over, whether it's a separate video or whatnot. So I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days. You want to get into the fights? Yeah,
so we'll start breaking them down.
Let's
what do we want to kick off with?
Yeah, so let's get into the fights. I reckon we start from lower down and work ourselves to the main event. So the first fight I'm kind of keen to touch on is on the prelims, and we'll do 2 prelim fights and we'll do them pretty quickly. The first one I want to touch on is Cody Garbrandt versus Brian Kelleher. Do you want to start this one off, or you want me to kick it off?
You can start this one off, because it's a tough one.
Yeah, sure. So Cody Garbrandt, former bantamweight champion, been on some sort of severe decline, which as a fan of the guy has been really tough to watch. And it's not down to lack of trying or talent. It's pure durability and striking defense. And I think it's just a fight IQ problem for him. Him as a fighter, he's an incredible boxer. He's got great footwork. He's very, very quick hand speed. And the last time we saw him out, so he's been a long time team alpha male guy, now fighting out of Vegas. I don't actually know what camp he's in. I think it might be Extreme with Dewey Cooper. So he's, shuffled his life to Vegas, which I think is a good move for him. But yeah, in his last fight, he fought Trevin Jones, who's notoriously gun shy. Cody looked even more gun shy. He's so timid now, man. He fights on the outside and he's just constantly looking to sort of circle out of exchanges. And I think it's because he knows his durability's just gone. He's always had really good wrestling offense. He's a wrestling junior through high school. He's got talent in that area, but he's not very top heavy. So when it does go to the ground, they can sort of scramble back up. I didn't like what I saw from him in the last fight. He just too scared, fighting on the outside, didn't want to engage in the pocket, which isn't, given his durability issues, maybe it's not the worst thing, but if you're coming up against a fighter who's pushing the pace against you, you're going to run into issues. So just quickly on Brian Kelleher, look, this guy's a long-time veteran of the game. He's small and he throws from weird angles, weird timing. He's got a really nasty guillotine, which I like and I think is going to be very pivotal in this matchup. He's got decent takedown defense, but his main takedown defense is to threaten the guillotine and sort of, say, be very careful if you're going to put your head in that position because I will jump gilly. He's coming off the back of I think it's like 2 or 3 years off. He's had back surgery, so big question mark on how he looks physically. But to me, I've looked at his Instagram. I'm keen to see him at the weigh-ins. He looks good. He looks in very good shape. I think it's a good matchup for him, to be honest with you. He's got a lot of punching power and he's got that nasty guillotine to threaten, which I think Cody's going to want to wrestle in this one. And if he does, I think Kelleher's going to be live by sub. How you feeling?
Yeah, listen, this is a good fight, but among the fights, I cannot put any kind of real idea of who I think's going to come out of this because it's such a tough fight. It's so, and mind the pun, I'm lukewarm about this fight. Really, I just don't know what could happen. I don't have any faith in Cody anymore. I don't think, he hasn't beaten a top 5 guy in a while. He's getting destroyed by the new generation of these, these bantamweights. So it's a difficult fight. If I say so, I think it might be a good fight for Cody to show off, hopefully, that he is still here. But Brian could also pull it off. But they're very similarly matched. I think they both kind of have a 50-50 chance. But I'd probably go with Brian, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting because Cody's close to minus 200 sort of area of a favorite, and I don't think I'd ever back him at that price. Just way too many question marks. And you've also got Brian, he's been in there with killers. I'd say his overall level of competition is lower, given that Cody went to the top. But look, Cody did get a soft run. And Kelleher's been in there with really good guys like Umar Nurmagomedov, Mario Batista, who's flying at the moment.
Ricky Simon.
Ricky Simon, John Lineker back in the day, Henan Bahau. He's been in there with good guys. So I don't think there's any question there. I think it'll be interesting to see what level Kelleher's at after that back surgery. But pending he looks good in the weigh-ins, I think he looks like a bet for me, to be honest with you. I think you got to take him inside the distance. That's just my personal opinion. Feels like an autoplay against Cody, who's just too easily finished.
I'd love for him to thrive, but he doesn't show it. Yeah,
and the gunshot just doesn't help. So that's that fight. I think the next one we want to touch on will be 1 second. It will be Josh Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell.
Last
Lukey,
of the prelims. Yeah, so
lead us off.
Josh Emmett, Bryce Mitchell. Emmett coming in. Oh, not Emmett. Sorry, Bryce Mitchell coming in on late notice. Josh Emmett was meant to fight Giga Chikadze, and Giga pulled out for, I can't remember the reason.
Tore his groin.
Tore his groin. Not great. He's had a shocking
on film
run.
Too.
Yeah, on film,
video,
wow.
Just like John Jones.
I have not seen it, and I probably won't watch it, but it's unlucky. The film curse, I guess, is going to be the new thing.
Yeah,
anytime you get filmed. But no, we've got Bryce Mitchell stepping up to the plate. Very, very talented fighter, Bryce Mitchell, 16-1, coming up against 40-year-old Josh Emmett, who's recently been, kind of shut down by the top of the division. Whereas Bryce Mitchell has kind of shown promise to stay in the top, maybe not reach the top yet, but at least, keep pushing forward. This is a tough fight. I think Josh Emmett has a lot of the experience, and Bryce Mitchell has a lot of the hunger, the youthfulness, which I would like to make an interjection here. This card, if you look at it on paper by age, has really been set up as older dudes versus young dudes. There is a ton of fights where it's a near 40-year-old fighter versus the up-and-coming fighter.
It's a changing of the guard card.
Well, yeah, it's a very changing of the guard. I think they're setting it up, or at least, they're letting it, be what it is, as a card where there could be a lot of either very last fights maybe not a lot of retirements, but like a lot of these guys are near retirement. So this is setting them up for some of their last fights. And I think this is, Josh Emmett's maybe last fight, top 3 last fights, maybe like he's getting up there in age. He has shown that he can't crack the top. He just can't get that title run, especially while Volk's there, especially while Max Holloway's there. Rodriguez. There's just too many tough people at the top, and to be at that age, he's just not there. So I think Bryce Mitchell should have a good go at getting a submission here. That would be my assumed. I mean, it's Bryce Mitchell. We all know him. He's good. He's good on the ground. He's good with the submissions. I think, Bryce Mitchell will probably get this done in 1 or 2 rounds with a submission. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I reckon that's probably a good read. We all know what Emmett has to offer at this point. It's an overhand right and some, weird-ass footwork. Like, he's so flat-footed. If you look at him, he looks like he's wearing thongs, like, as his feet. He's so flat-footed and wide, very heavy set. Look, he's probably got the striking upside on this one, and Bryce is, very, very hittable. But to Bryce's credit, he is durable as all fuck and sort of just never stops coming forward. He knows where he thrives, which is what I like about him. He thrives in his, relentless pace and just chain wrestling attempts to get you down. He's like glue. I remember that, his last fight against Dan Ige, where we had a play on Dan Ige. Dan was stuffing the initial attempts, but he just couldn't get Bryce off his hips. He would work he would work a double. If the double got stuffed, he'd just change to a single, go against the cage. As soon as he got him down, he was just all over him like glue. And he's really, really good in the half guard position, especially advancing. And if you go one way and give you back, then you're in a lot of trouble. And if you go the other way and you let him get full mount, you're in just as deep a trouble. So he's really, really dangerous on the ground. But he does only have one finish in the UFC. So that's a question mark for me, given how tough and durable Josh Emmett is. Josh Emmett has been submitted before. So, look, I probably lean Bryce Mitchell by submission. But, it'd be between that and a decision. Maybe a double chance will get you some nice odds. But, I think Bryce Mitchell's the side in this one. I think it's a pretty bad matchup for Emmett. And as long as Bryce doesn't get stiffed by that overhand right coming in, I think he should look pretty good in this one.
Yep.
So, on to the main card. The first fight is Vicente Luque taking on Ian Garry.
Honestly, we should have done this main card backwards because it would have been from the most, kind of in the news media power. But Vicente versus Ian Garry. Do you want to start it off?
Yeah, sure. So coming into this one, we've got Ian Garry. He's about, just off the top of my head, I think he's about a minus 350 favorite. And then I think you've got Vicente Luque at about plus 275-ish, I want to say, in that area. So Luque, quite a decent underdog. He's about a 3-4 to 1 underdog. These two guys used to train together coming out of Killcliff, Sanford MMA, whatever you want to call it. Garry fighting out of Shooter Box for this one. So, look, it's a really interesting fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. I'll start with Vicente. So obviously he had that brain bleed a couple of fights ago after that Jeff Neal fight, and that's just a really bad look. But, he didn't look too bad against RDA. I would say he looked a little bit more hesitant and timid to engage, which I don't mind from him because he's so sort of lackadaisical in when he's in front of you that he will just get hit by the jab and the straight shots. Like, he does have a high guard, high boxing guard, high Thai style guard, but he doesn't parry, he doesn't slip, he just like blocks and absorbs, which I guess is a defensive technique. But when you've been on the end of such a beating and you've had brain bleeds and that, and you've been in so many wars in your career, you cannot do that forever. A couple of good things that he does. He counters jabs really, really well with his leg kick. It's probably his best counter, I would say. But one big thing to note is he doesn't do good against southpaws. So if Ian Garry is, technically an orthodox, but I think he has the ability to fight out of southpaw as well.
Yeah.
But Luque is much more effective when he moves forward. He's always sort of backing up on the straight line, which concerns me in this fight. So on to Ian Garry. He's an orthodox kickboxer. He's a very big frame for the welterweight division, but he actually doesn't have that long of a reach compared to his frame. Yeah. So I think Luque actually has a 1-inch reach advantage, which will be interesting. But yeah, he's very, very good with his range. He's just at that kicking range where he can hit you, but he's sort of just able to slip out of the way of shots, which I like. He attacks very long, got the good calf kick, uses hip feints a lot to set that up, and then he's, works that off the back of his jab. He's very vulnerable to be hit in the pocket. We've seen him countered a lot of times with hooks and caught with his chin up coming in. He's just a really intelligent striker. He's also got a judo background. So I'm interested to see if this one goes to ground, how it plays out, because Luque is really dangerous with that front headlock series. And I think Garry, striking advantage and probably doesn't need to play on the ground, but if it does, I'll be interested. I think it's all Garry for me in this one. I just don't think Luque has the defensive ability to, be slipping shots and make Garry pay. And I think if it's at kicking range, I fancy Garry's speed and his length and his kicking offense to win this fight. I also think Garry's power is a little bit overrated. He's got, not a lot of power in his hands. If the fight finishes, it's off an accumulation. I don't think it's a one-shot stoppage. So, yeah, I think Garry probably wins this one. He probably looks pretty good as he does it. I will take Ian Garry by unanimous decision, but I think the odds are pretty gross.
Okay, yeah, no. So I'm going to disagree with you. I think Luque has a really good chance here, and I think it's just down to, I don't know, it's really down to a lot of feeling for me, but I wish I had statistics to back it up. Like I could say like Ian Garry's vulnerable to this, but he hasn't had that many fights in the UFC. He has been rocked in the past. He has been caught a couple times in the past.
Yep.
His fight against fight against Neil
Magny.
Neil Magny. Yeah. His fight against Neil Magny, I think, has a little bit of a recency effect on everyone. They're thinking, he demolished him, so he's the best fighter ever. But I think if you look at his past fights before Neil Magny, he wasn't crazy ahead of the curve. He wasn't doing immaculate stuff in the ring. He wasn't impressing everybody. He was still winning, which was good, but he was vulnerable. And I think if anybody's there to show how vulnerable Ian Garry can be, it's not going to be Neil Magny. It's going to be someone like Vicente Luque. Vicente's also, this fight, other than the co-main, and this fight, the age difference isn't too big. It's 26 versus Vicente's 32, I believe. So it's not really a fight of youth. I think Vicente's also had a couple. He had the brain bleed, which he took years off. But he's still relatively young, Vicente. And so it's not really like a youthful Ian coming against some old guy, Vicente's been in the game a bit. But I think Vicente's still hungry, and I don't think he, is slowing down anytime soon. I actually think him coming off that injury and taking the appropriate amount of time off and then getting in and getting a nice win did wonders for him, probably mentally and confidence-wise and everything, because you look at people like Tom Aspinall, who comes off a knee, ACL tear or whatever pop, and he comes back and then he gets a nice win, and he gets the belt, so it's good. It shows good patience. It also shows, confidence in their ability that they can take time off and still come back, because you would hate for fighters, and I don't want to bring it up, but Volk did exactly the opposite of that. He wasn't patient. He took time, he didn't take any time. He just jumped straight back into it. And I don't think his shoulder or his arm was the issue in that fight, but I just think people are impatient. And Vicente showed great patience, and he's come back and he's hungry. And I'm just going to lean with Vicente, just over the fact that, I think Ian Garry is vulnerable, and I think Vicente can show that off. He's a lot smarter than people give him credit for, and Ian Garry's a lot worse than that Neil Magny fight looked.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of intangibles in this fight as well that we won't really know until we see it. Like, will the factor of the ex-training partners, Henry Hooft being the coach there and being very, very involved with Gary in the past.
Yeah.
They're going to know each other's game very well. So I don't know who that's going to benefit more, who got the better of who in the, the training room. We'll find out pretty quickly, I think. You also obviously got all the media, all the distractions coming in for Ian Garry. So, look, there is a lot of intangibles. And I think if there's a fighter who is, willing to eat a jab and a cross to get in there and land a hook on you, it's Vicente Luque. So, look, yeah, I think he's live. I do think he's live. Like, he's going to have a chance to hit Garry. I just think Gary's, I think it's the A side of this one for me.
They definitely want to give Ian Garry a nice win if they can, but they also want Vicente to have a worth a shot. Like, this obviously isn't a safe fight for Vicente. Like, obviously he's just come back and he's gotten a very solid win, but yeah, they're not giving Vicente an easy fight to maintain his position here. But that's how it is sometimes. You're either climbing or you're getting pushed down. So. But I think to touch on what you just said there a little bit, I would like to say, all the distractions is on Ian Garry's side. So he's got so much, internet presence, social media, all this media presence about him. And he's going to have a lot to have to think about and answer and talk about, and the conferences, and defend himself verbally before he even gets in the ring against Vicente. And Vicente has zero of that. He just recently became a Christian again. He got baptized or whatever they call it when they push you in the water. I'm not religious. Sorry, anybody who's religious, and I'm butchering your religion right now. But he is focused on God and fighting. And we've seen what that does for the Dagestanis. We've seen what that does for the real, true patriot, like Christians in the Western, countries. You can go off blind faith and it can win you fights. Like, it is so good for the mental to have no excuses and no, like fuzziness and cloudiness in your brain. And Vicente is going to come in here sharp, and I think he's going to, know exactly what he needs to do. Whereas you've got Ian Garry, who doesn't know if he's going to come out to boos on Saturday, Sunday. He doesn't know if he's going to be booed walking out yet. So it's such an interesting fight. And we've seen recently how we don't know the excuse of it yet. We don't know exactly what happened. But Israel Adesanya, obviously being a very big target against, of the media against his fight with Sean Strickland. And he lost that, just horribly different than we've ever thought Izzy could lose. We've seen him lose against Pereira, but we haven't seen him lose like that before. And it almost felt like a degrading of a man. Like, I don't like seeing that or saying that, but it felt like he had been just, almost shunned. And his result was the shunning, of society. And we could see the same here for Luque. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm praying for Luque. I hope he goes out there and absolutely stiffs Garry. I think that'll make a lot of people's years, and I think that'll be a nice way to close the show. But that's a good one. So let's see how that fight plays out. The next one we're going to go into is
another shocker.
Oh God. Tony Ferguson taking on Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. I've got not much to say on this one, so you can lead us off.
Yeah, I'll start this one off. So Tony Ferguson coming in here against Paddy Pimblett, like we've been talking about before, and kind of the whole, over-presenting, story of this card is it's almost the passing of the torches, the top guys, kind of getting put against these younger guys, the up-and-coming guys, and this is what this one is, basically, plain and simple. When I saw it in the news media, when it got announced or hinted at in the news, I said, oh my God, they're giving Tony Ferguson Paddy Pimblett. I was just like, they're not making it easy for Tony. He is getting no safety nets, no setup fights. Paddy Pimblett is, and I think before his controversy, I think he was such a hot prospect, and I really still, underneath all of the shit, like him, but Tony Ferguson has had a shocker, and me and Dylan probably disagree on this, but Tony Ferguson, well, we agree on this, Tony Ferguson has had a shocker. His last couple fights are just, not there, getting submitted by Bobby Green after a 3 rounds, Domination. It was pretty confident that Bobby Green was winning that without the submission, and then he submits him in the last, 6 seconds of the fight. And then submitted by Nate Diaz before that. The front kick KO, which I do not want to ever see again, and I hate that people put it all over Instagram and TikTok and stuff. Michael Chandler kicking him in the head. Then Beneil Dariush before that, who we don't know what even Beneil Dariush is doing, but he beats him. Charles Oliveira, Gaethje, it's you go down the list. He used to be the best of the best, and now he's getting beaten by the top 10 guys, and Paddy's coming in here after a rocky performance against Jared Gordon. The judges, in a year full of robberies, this was probably one of the closer ones to a robbery. And depending on what side you stand on, it was a robbery. He looked terrible in that fight. Like, that's all you can really say about it. Paddy Pimblett doesn't really, he didn't really hide his chin. Jared Gordon found all the entries he needed, but he ran away with a unanimous decision, which even at the end of it, I was still sitting there thinking, even if Paddy won, it's going to be a split, right? Like, there's no way it's unanimous. And it was unanimous, which is almost worse than, giving them a false win. It's that you said that they pretty much won all rounds, which is insane. But before that, Jordan Levitt, Rodrigo Vargas, like these guys, he finished pretty fast with the submission, and he was making himself out to be a star, and he looked pretty fast. But yeah, his stand-up is just not as good when he's put up against someone who knows how to, box like Jared Gordon. He shudders a little bit. He doesn't perform as well. I think everyone was hoping for a submission in that fight, and we saw no real attempts throughout the whole fight. This fight, tricky. When I saw it, I was astounded that Tony Ferguson, I knew he would take it. He's not going to decline a contract, but I don't like that it was fed to Tony. I would have liked to see Paddy against someone else. And my heart says I would love Tony to win this, but my brain says Paddy. I just think, again, Paddy's young, Tony's old. It's not looking good for these old guys. When in doubt and there's a massive gap in age, always take the younger guy. That's my opinion. That's how I usually bet. That's how I usually go with it. Yeah, and look, Bobby Green isn't the best fighter, and we've seen that recently with his, past weekend getting knocked out by Jalen Turner. And Bobby Green's a lovely fighter, but even he, finished Tony. So it goes to show how, is Tony even, able to compete at this level anymore? And I think this is the fight to kind of show that, but it's kind of win-win for Paddy, because if he beats him, he looks really good. If he loses, it's not that win-win, but Tony, everyone loves Tony to win. And I think, but the pressure's on Paddy for sure to win this. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of valuable factors in here, like with Tony training with Goggins, like this whole thing. For people who don't know, Goggins is a mental coach and a fitness freak.
And
he's been training.
A fucking head case.
Yeah, and
he's a lunatic.
And he's kind of perfectly the type of guy you would expect to be friends with a person like Tony Ferguson, because they're mental cases. But there's a lot of is debate on if he needed that. Did he need a mental coach? Did he need someone to push him till he vomited doing 30K laps? It was just very odd. And you get thinking, why? What's the point when his mental side in the fight was always his best thing? He never gave up. He didn't get pushed down and stay down. It just, to me, it sounds like he's prepped for the wrong fight. He's just prepped for something. I don't know. I hope he's prepped for Paddy, and I hope Paddy's prepped for him. But just, yeah, it seems like a dying last wish on Tony's side, and I hate to say that, and a lot of fans are going to hate me for saying it, but I just think Tony's not going to win this one. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know how this fight's sanctioned. This is just, I don't know. Tony should not be fighting. It's as simple as that. Paddy is shit. Tony at this point is worse, unfortunately. And it pains me to say that because watching the guys, rise through his career and his win streak, how he was winning, what he was doing to people, just incredible. And now he's going
Legacy's
the opposite
insane,
way.
yeah.
Yeah, and now he's going the opposite way. So I actually disagree. I think it's a lose-lose for Paddy.
Okay.
To be honest with you,
True.
I think if he wins, everyone will go, "Oh, you beat washed-up Tony Ferguson,
yeah,
who's got no
true.
knees and who's dog shit
True.
now." And then if he loses, it's like, "Oh, you lost to Tony Ferguson, who sucks." So I don't think he's really going to get credit either way.
Oh, true.
But yeah, just an ugly fight for me. I mean, I agree with your Goggins point. I think that's probably the last person he needs to be training with. I think if anything, he needs to be getting on steroids and getting to be more athletic or getting some sort of edge, because the last thing he needs is a mental edge, because that guy, all he does is kick fucking banana trees down for training and hit Wing Chun dummies. So that's a terrible move. And look, I don't know. There's not too much to say in this one for me. I think, look, Paddy's super hittable. Is there a chance that Tony could knock him out? Very slim one, I think. But look, Tony has had glimpses of success. Like in the first round against Bobby, he arguably was winning before that eye poke. He knocked down Michael Chandler in that fight a couple of times back, and he won that first round before
Michael
he got
Chandler's pretty hittable though.
Yeah, you're right. But it's just Paddy Pimblett's not fucking,
not better than Chandler.
He's not in the Matrix.
No.
So yeah, look, he's had glimpses of success, I guess. Very brief glimpses. But look, I think this one's all Paddy. I think Tony, I just don't want to see him get hurt again, because Paddy's very, very good at his jiu-jitsu. I think he's a second-degree black belt now. So he's a very high-level black belt. I think this goes to ground, and I think when it does, Paddy's the A-side for me. I think he's very live to submit him. I don't want him to submit him with a knee or a leg or an arm, because you know what Tony's like. He will not tap. It will snap. And I will not be watching. I hope it's a rear naked choke or a triangle or something, and he just goes to sleep, worst case. But yeah, I think Paddy's live to sub him in this one, unfortunately. And I think it's the last time we see Tony Ferguson fight.
It's sad to say, but yeah, I think this is probably Tony's last fight. Will he be tough enough to even, bite the bullet and retire? Probably not. I don't know. I feel like he probably wants to reach 300. He probably wants to get on there somehow. But with these performances, you've got so many people who want to be on 300, and it's like, is Tony going to be there? Probably not, unless he can pull this off. But and I also think, just touching on the mentality side of it again, like I said before with Ian Garry, Paddy was the heel for a while and got blessed with this, and kind of stayed low. Like, it wasn't all just Ian Garry and the couple of weeks taking it off him. He went
Paddy's
low
been
profile.
Gone for about 8 months.
He went low profile, and that's a good sign to me. It means that he took what he said and then kind of went, maybe I'm a dickhead. He's not going to go out there and run his mouth again. So he stopped running his mouth. He went in and probably trained the hardest he's ever trained, or at least, went in there and put some work in. So him being silent and low profile really tells me, hopefully that he's, gone and decided to take shit seriously and fuck the noise. Because at the end of the day, winning the fight matters, not how you're looked at social media wise. So as long as he, puts his, effort into winning this fight, I think he'll make fans regardless. And I still think he's the not fan favorite, but I think there's a lot more new fans for him and a lot more fans saying, oh, come on, Tony, please win this. It's whimperings of Tony fans, which is sad, but it's the new age and these are the new fighters, and they're pretty much given these fights to, boost themselves up in the rankings and the eyes of the people. So yeah, Paddy all the way, probably. Sadly,
it's clear what the UFC is trying to do. They're just trying to get the last bit of star power off Tony and onto Paddy. And to be fair to Paddy, look, in that Jared Gordon fight, he did get injured in that first round. I think he broke his foot. So, maybe we didn't see the best version of him there, and maybe he's coming back healthier and looking better. And anyway, that's all I want to say about that fight. I am not looking forward to watching that one. And
I'm sure the England, London, not England, UK fans are all, loving us for this moment, but there's probably a ton of fans out there wishing we said fuck Paddy a little bit more. So
Yeah. Oh, I've got nothing against either of these blokes. I just
Yeah.
don't want to see Tony go down. Yeah, just don't want to see Tony
fight.
go down bad.
Speaking of a good fight, we've got
going into another elderly person that's going to get fucking battered. Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Steve Wonderboy Thompson. Do the thing, Lukey. Do the thing.
Not a great matchup again. Another one I saw and I immediately was depressed. I did not want to see Stephen Thompson be matched up against someone like Shavkat. That was the last thing on my mind. You know, we had Stephen Thompson. He was saying he wanted to fight for the belt one last time, one last title run. He even called out Kamaru Usman, talked about fighting Kamaru Usman, which I thought was, interesting. But it was I think, valuable, choice. He kind of thought it as if I can beat him and I might be the matchup style difference for him, then maybe I can get a belt straight after. But Usman obviously had different plans that we saw, and Stephen Thompson needed another fight. So they decided to match him up against Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't think that name should be too unfamiliar to people now, but he is from Kazakhstan and he's on a 17-0 win streak.
All finishes.
Yeah, all finishes. He's got 100% finish rate. He is gnarly. Everybody loves him. He's also fought two of the last guys we've talked about recently, like in the fighting card that have been fighting, and that's Jeff Neal and Neil Magny. So he's beaten them. He's taken on a lot of, pretty high level guys. But yeah, he's finished them all. He's insane. And then we've got on the other side of the ring, Stephen Thompson recently, turned 40. Old guy again, just a terrible matchup. Not happy to see this. Stephen Thompson, obviously fan favorite, similar again, but that's because of his legacy and his, you've been in the game long enough, you get enough fans. But Stephen Thompson, karate main, he's coming in here to fight an absolute demon, and it's such a depressing, sight to see, because again, like Tony Ferguson, it's just like maybe his last chance, or it is his probably last chance to really get anywhere, and he has to go through a guy who hasn't been stumped by any opponent yet. How I think this fight happens, I'm not sure. Probably Shavkat comes out on top as usual. Do I see a 17-1 after this from Stephen Thompson? Probably not. What do you think, Dylan? What's your thoughts?
Oh, God.
What's your thoughts? Painful thoughts. Let them out.
This one's going to hurt to watch as well.
Yes.
Got to ask yourself, how does Wonderboy win this fight? Is he going to outpoint him for 15 minutes? I don't think so. And I think that's his only chance of winning. Yeah. I think Shavkat, look, this guy is fucking enormous for the division, for one. Yep. He's incredibly durable. He's got great striking. Like, he's got kicks. He's got solid punches. He'll spin. He's dangerous everywhere. And then he's also got takedowns, trips, throws. He's got a submission game. The guy has no faults that we've seen. And he's run through some really good unranked guys like Carlston Harris. No issues. And then he started taking on ranked guys. He fought a very, very powerful boxer in Jeff Neal. Did he get clipped a few times? Yeah, but it never slowed him down. Mm-hmm. And look, if Neal can't knock him out, I don't think Wonderboy can do anything to him on the feet. Look, can he land some, geez, I almost put a slur in there. Little side kicks and things? Sure. But I just give it no chance that this little karate nerd is going to stop this Mongolian fucking monster. He looks like the second coming of Genghis Khan. I just don't see it. Just don't see him stopping it. And I can actually see the winning stoppage in my head. I can picture it. It's exactly going to play. I think Shavkat takes this to the fight early. I think Wonderboy butt scoots against the cage, and I think Rakhmonov lands a sort of mounted half guillotine sort of thing, like a John Jones, Cyril Gane up against the cage, chokes Wonderboy out, walks off and says, "Thanks for coming. Give me the title shot next." And guess what happens after this fight? Bilal goes to the back of the line. Shavkat goes to the front and says, "Give me the title shot." And that's next.
Yeah, it's a terrible matchup amongst other terrible matchups. Just complete like kind of one-sidedness.
Yeah,
but it's definitely probably Shavkat's fight to win. Out of all of them, this is probably the most confident. I don't know what the betting odds are here
it's massive. He's about a minus 500, something like that.
Yeah, it's very crazy. And I know some Stephen Thompson fans that are gonna obviously bet on him. I think it's a stupid bet, but
yeah, thanks for the donation.
Thanks for the donation. He's just in for a really tough fight. If he can pull it off, then yeah, give Stephen Thompson Usman, because he's got the endurance of Usman.
That's
and
what
I think
he should be
take
having
Usman
at this point.
Then.
That's the fights that he should be having at this point. He should not be versing, horrific up and comers like Shavkat, who just damage. I'm just having a look at what Rakhmonov by submission is, plus 125. Yuck, pretty gross odds. I'd say that's how it happens, probably round 1 or round 2. But yeah, not overly enticed on a money line angle.
Yep.
And I just don't want to see much damage. I hope it's a quick sort of catch him in a submission and oh damn, he got caught.
I could definitely see elbows and cuts on Stephen Thompson after this fight though, which would just disgusting. I wouldn't want to see it. It seems like I think Shavkat's nice enough to finish him pretty fast if he can.
Yeah, and I'm keen to see Shavkat at the top. I want to see him. I don't want to see him beat up Wonderboy for 3 rounds. I know it's it's a sort of a rite of passage that's how this sport plays out. But oh god, when you watch these people get older and grow, and you grow yourself, the last thing you want to see is these guys get fucking smashed and cut open, and yeah, it's tough. But anyway, hopefully Wonderboy does all good and goes all well. There's a Twitter conspiracy flying around that Wonderboy is going to get dragged last minute and Bilal's going to get thrown in because he's weighing in as the backup, which honestly I would love to see that.
Yeah, well then we can have an all-out war then on Bilal.
Exactly.
I don't
then
care.
Everyone's happy. Then everyone's happy. So anyway, hopefully that happens. But if not, Shavkat sub round 1 is probably the play for me.
Yep. All right, on to the next.
Co-main event of the evening. We got the cannibal Alexandre Pantoja taking on the raw dog Brandon Royval. 2 of my boys. You want me to kick this one off?
Yeah, you kick it off.
All right. So I've got a pretty lengthy history of both of these guys. Been betting on Pantoja in his streak for probably 4 fights now. I bet on him to absolutely run through Alex Perez, did that easy. I don't know if I bet on him in the last Royval matchup, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, we bet on him against Brandon Moreno as a pretty good size underdog, and he came out on top there. And in terms of Royval, I've been betting on him for a long, long time. When he versed Kai Kara France, this is a throwback, but Ryan, who used to run the page or be involved with the page with me, he took Kai Kara France. I took Brandon Royval. We watched that together, and it was probably one of the craziest fights I've ever seen with someone else. It was just back and forth, and that's just how Raw Dog fights, man. He's just non-stop aggression and just never stops coming. He has really long Muay Thai skills where he'll just, throw knees up the middle. He'll throw spinning attacks. He'll throw elbows. He just damages you and never stops moving forward. But it's sort of also his downfall, because when he versus these really elite grapplers, which is what happened with the first Pantoja fight, he, charged in, got taken down a couple of times, eventually gave up his back, sort of trying to scramble and force weird leg entanglements or get back to his feet. And against these guys like Pantoja, who just are elite on the ground, you can't do it because they'll find you back and they'll get you out of there. And the back is where Pantoja thrives, not survives. He thrives there. So if you give him your back, the fight's more or less over. That's how good he is on the back. But look, in that Moreno fight, what did he do? He gassed out very, very early, but showed incredible commitment to just keep going and not stop, which was insane because he wore a lot of shots. And I think that's my sort of main concern coming into this fight, is that he's done that sort of his whole career, and there is a best before date of when your chin just gives up. And against a guy who's always damaging like Brandon Royval, it is concerning. I think the rematch, is, it's obviously a good thing for Pantoja, but we don't often see these play out the same. And I think Royval be a little bit more hesitant to engage more so with his hips, as in, running forward and letting Pantoja go under for the double leg through him and getting onto his hips. Because I think if he does that, that's where Pantoja wins the fight. He gets it to the ground. He forces Royval to sort of look to Granby roll or, hip high or shrimp and give up a weird position. But I think if Royval keeps this on the feet, I think he's live as hell to knock out Pantoja. I think I can see knees up the middle. I can see spinning back fist. I can see lots of stuff that he can attack with. It's a sick fight. I'm super keen for this fight. 5 rounds is great because I think both men are better over 5 rounds. Obviously, Pantoja slowed down in that last fight. Could happen again. We haven't seen Royval over 5, but to me, his style screams 5 rounds. This is probably my most anticipated fight on the card, to be honest with you. I love this fight. I love both these guys. I think it's going to be a barn burner, and I don't think this goes over 3 rounds. So even though it is 5 rounds, I think one of these guys finishes in the first 3. I think Royval has to be a play. We played him at 185. He's just a guy that'll fight for your money, which I love. Yeah. I love. You're never going to put money on him and go, fuck, he gave up. Never going to happen. I think he's going to be live at some point in this fight, whether or not Pantoja can absorb it and, keep moving forward like he's done his whole career. We'll find out. I'm going to take Royval. I think Royval might knock him out. I'm going to go round 2 Royval knockout. But I love both these guys, so I don't really care who wins. So, well, you say that, but I feel a very heavy presence on Royval for you. You're a little bit more of a fan of Royval. He's done you some good in the past. He's a good betting favorite. Favorite, whatever. Whenever he's on, you can bet on him, and he's good to bet on because he, again, like you said, he does not give up. But I do think he has a bit of a issue. Like, he's obviously had an issue in the past with Pantoja. He's fought him before, and he's been submitted by him. I think Pantoja, obviously, coming off this Brandon Moreno win to get the belt, I think, sadly, his win was the most miserable of this year. I think it was not as hyped as any other belt, So as I fucking champions loved it. I loved it, mate. Plus 190 slip. I'll have that every day of the week. I think as fans of the sport, we loved it. But I think as it goes for just the vast majority of belts that have been won this year, it is on the lower end. People kind of whimpered away. Nobody really thinks of Pantoja when they're thinking about the new champions of this year. They're thinking about Sean Strickland and or Aspinall recently, even John Jones. But we've got that Brandon Moreno fight was a tough one because Brandon Moreno was in it. And going off I don't know if he ever confirmed it or someone confirmed it. He had a broken hand after the first round too, apparently, or injured hand, which Brandon Moreno is a dog. Again, similar to Royval, Brandon Moreno is not going to give up in a fight. And if he went the full 5 or full 4 rounds after that with a broken hand or whatever, good on him. But it goes to show Alexandre Pantoja, he just, stuck in there long enough to get that decision. But I think if they run that back, I'd like to, just on a side note, I'd like to see Brandon Moreno again. I know he's been paired up a lot, and I think he's sadly one of the better fighters that has been getting unlucky, kind of with how he had to rematch 3 times against Davis and Figueiredo and all that. He's just had kind of an unlucky, way to the belt. But Pantoja won it off him, and now this is his next fight that he has to focus on. And Royval is definitely a dog, but Royval, I don't know if he can take out the top 3. He's lost to Brandon Moreno, he's lost to Pantoja. Does he have a chance? Probably a higher chance than most other, people in this flyweight division. But it's such a disgustingly even fight for me. I think Brandon Royval could get him out of there with a knockout. I think that would be the way he would get him out of there. But you could just see a repeat of a submission, from Pantoja, which is very likely as well. Pantoja definitely could get on him. And it's not like Brandon's, invulnerable to submissions. He has been submitted once in the past,
But yeah, he's they're both all-rounders. These guys are both all-rounders. They could do whatever. They can submit you. They can knock you out. I think it's going to be such a matchup. This is my, fight of the night, probably. I think it'll be a scrap fest, and I think people put that, they don't like that because it's flyweights and there's not a lot of knockout power in this division, but it's these two. I think everyone who's looking down on this fight will be shocked at how good it is.
Yeah, these two can finish fights, man. I love this fight. I think it's excellent. And I think if the Royval camp, Factory X, and Mark Montoya there have any semblance of being a decent coaching staff, they're getting into Royval's ear and they're saying, do not enter these stupid scrambles with Pantoja, because as effective as they are against other guys, he's just too good at getting the back and coming up on top. So I think if they're in his ear and they say, look, keep this standing, fight from range, you can attack with some of those weird spinning sort of, just those unique attacks. I think he can do that, but he has to be aware that if he spins and gives his back, Pantoja's going to be on him like a backpack.
I think, yeah.
But where does Pantoja win this fight if it's standing? He probably doesn't. He's going to have to enter into range, and then he's liable to run into a knee, run into an elbow, or, anything like that. Again, love the fight. Under 3.5, under 4.5 is going to be a definite look for me. Keen.
Yep.
Lovely. So last fight of the evening, and it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to lead this one off?
You could lead this one off.
Okay, we've got the champion Leon Edwards taking on the contender Colby Covington. Again, this is two of my boys. Yeah. I've always been a Colby Covington fan, even through all the times when he was, when he wasn't a fan favorite. I was always a fan of him. And then on to Leon. Again, he wasn't a fan favorite he probably still isn't really a massive fan favorite, but just a dog, man. He's cashed so many underdog slips for me that I can't hate this guy. What was he against Kamaru Usman? Plus 400, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the rematch, he was again at plus 250, plus 300, and he cashed both those slips for us. So, love the guy as a betting prospect. Love the guy as a fighter. This is a fun matchup. Look, the thing with Colby Covington is the guy is so hard to analyze because you just see him so infrequently that you don't know, what improvements he's made. Has he gone downhill? You just don't know until he gets in there. I think the only thing you can get out of this fight is you watch the two Kamaru Usman fights for both men, and judging off those fights, for me, this is a close fight.
Mm-hmm.
Covington, again, his issue to me is that he just doesn't have power. Whereas Marty can, Kamaru Marty Usman can, he can sit you down with a jab. He has that strong overhand right, that strong cross, just that developing power and that athleticism that makes you not want to engage with him. And you could see that in the Covington fights. Like, it was clear that Covington was landing really, really well, but it wasn't with the same significance that Usman was landing with. And then, invertly to that, you've got the Leon Edwards fight where it was kind of the opposite, where Leon wasn't landing as much in that first fight, but when he did, it was so much more powerful. And then that second fight, I think he had the confidence. I think he was in his hometown, and the kicking game just shone for him. But again, in this fight, you've got Colby's a southpaw, right? So, and Leon's a southpaw too, which means the rear leg and the rear hand are sort of, they're not out of the picture, but they're less important. Whereas you've got Usman, who was an orthodox, versus Edwards, who was a southpaw, and that sets up the rear side, which is Edwards' main offense. And where he shines, and he's not going to have that in this fight as much of a degree as he did in that fight. And you've got obviously the pace and the pressure of Colby. I think he's a better chain wrestler than Usman for me. So I think while he might miss on the first shot where Usman might have got it, he's not going to stop. He's going to wrestle you against the cage, wall walk you, get you down, just wear on you. Look, this is a close fight. I don't have an angle and I don't have a side. I think, I really don't have a side in this fight. I think it's very, very close. I think I probably lean Edwards, if anything, just because I think he's in his athletic prime, whereas I think Colby might be a little bit past it. And I favour the power of Edwards a bit. But that's not to say that Colby can't go out here, ragdoll him for 5 rounds or, just wear on him with wrestling and win 3 rounds. I think that's a very big possibility as well. Like I said, no strong conviction in this fight for me, which is pretty rare. But, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I've been a big fan of Leon Edwards since he's been doing his, what I like to call like his second run. His basically since losing to Kamaru, he's become pretty much he has been undefeated, but he's become a different fighter and a new fighter. So he's almost, if you start him from that Kamaru first initial fight where he lost, he's basically a new star. And since then he's risen through. And I think what's good about him is he's taken out some really top tier guys as well, with your like Vicente Luque's, Brian Barberena, but he's also defeated, the technical old fellas and put them, on their last couple of fights, the Donald Cerrone's, Gunnar Nelson, RDA, and then Nate Diaz, which was an interesting fight. Then he goes off and he beats Kamaru Usman in, Salt Lake City, and he looked puffed the whole fight, and then his coach gave him one of the most incredible speeches of the past 10 years, probably past decade. And he goes out there and head kicks him in the last minute of round 5. It gets everyone, especially me and Dylan, a big paycheck that day. We watched that together that day, and it was amazing. And then he goes out and fights Kamaru again, deservedly. I think Kamaru deserved that rematch. Amongst all the rematches we've had, he definitely deserved a rematch for that title. And that was also kind of a really good fight. And it showed how, Edwards could do in a better location where it wasn't as, high altitude and wasn't as tough on his lungs. And he did what I think we all kind of hoped he would have, shown in that first fight before he had to head kick him to win, and he beat him to a majority, decision. And that was really, kind of the selling point for me, where I went, this guy's, top tier. He's one of the best. He deserves. There's some guys in the pound for pound list that you kind of go, what are they doing here? Like, really? And then, but Leon, you go, okay, he deserves to be here. He beat literally one of the number 1 pound for pound. Before Kamaru Usman lost to him, he was number 1 pound for pound, like it was doing great. And then you've got Colby, who's taken so much time off. And I think a lot of people are angry at Leon Edwards, and it's fair because he's the champion, and I understand the point of like why they're aiming it at him, because he's the champion. He's not fighting as much. He's not active, but Colby is also not active, and people are riding him a little bit too hard, I think. I'm going to say that. He should also be active. It's insane that he hasn't fought someone in a year and a half. It was, March 2022, Jorge Masvidal. And before that, it was Kamaru, And then it was Tyron Woodley, Kamaru, Robbie Lawler. Like, these are, and I saw something online about it, and I agree with it. Like, his last couple fights, I mean, you look at it here, he's just taken out old men, and he can't beat Kamaru, who at this point in that division is like the old man, in that division. If you can beat Kamaru, like, it shows how good you are.
I scored that second Kamaru fight to Colby, just saying.
Okay, well, a lot of people do, and I think that's fine as well. If you're a fan of Colby and you thought he won that, then yeah, you definitely should be riding for him, and that you have that right. But I think Colby's just lost a lot of fans from his inactivity, whereas Leon isn't losing fans because he didn't build his fans off his personality and being this big like star. He built it off how good he is at fighting, and so they're going to stick around because that's what he does, Whereas Colby's built a lot of his fans off his activity offline, on the, kind of present side, and he hasn't been present, and he doesn't fight, so he's lost a lot of fans. And I think this is a must win for Colby.
Yeah, I agree.
Not only for the belt, but for fighting in general. If he loses this, he's whimpering away in this sport. Like, honestly,
yeah, I agree. There's nothing much for him, really, is there?
I like Colby, and I understand why people like him, but I also disagree with the way he's like held himself in the last year and a half. I think, the whole Jorge Masvidal situation is a clusterfuck. I think sorry to swear, but like it's just, he's dealt with that weird. And then he goes and, tries to pick fights with people, but then wants Leon Edwards because he just wants that safety of that belt fight. He doesn't want to fight anyone else, and it just seems timid. Whereas Leon, obviously, he's the champion, and rightfully so. He's beaten Kamaru twice. I think he had a little bit more deserved time off if he wanted to take time off, especially if he injured himself or something, definitely take more time off. But his inactivity isn't like excusable too. He should be more active, but he was trying to get away from Colby for a bit too. And I think he was in the same mindset that I kind of am in that. Does Colby deserve it really? Because what is he doing? Like, you got to show you deserve it. And I think they obviously, weaned down Leon Edwards and made him kind of see the light of fighting Colby and the reason behind it, because I don't think he was going to pick him for a year and a half. Like, he wasn't going to pick him, he was just like, yeah, screw Colby. I don't want to fight him. Why would I? He's done nothing, and he has a chance at beating him. Yeah, for sure. That also goes into it. But I don't think Leon was ducking it as much as Leon was just saying, give me a better fighter than Colby Covington, who I disagree with. Like, as a fighter, as a human, which is totally understandable, because I have seen a lot. I will say this. I want to make a point of this. A lot of people saying Chaos Covington is going to come in here and he's going to dominate over 5 rounds. And I just disagree. I don't think I don't know how much you put on ring rust, Dylan, but I don't think that, a fighter that's been out for a year and a half is going to come in there with, the perfect gas tank and also the perfect fight IQ and the perfect, like, when you're inactive, your fight IQ also goes down because you've got to keep it stimulated so you can keep that fast speed with it, And I'm sure Colby's been training, but not fighting, Whereas Leon, he's just quick, and he's shown himself to be one of the smartest, fighters in this division in, all of UFC. He's quick-witted, he's smart, he knows what he's doing, sets up exchanges really well. You could see that in the Kamaru Usman second fight, where he got a lot more wins in that fight than the first one, obviously. And didn't have to KO him because he was just winning exchanges with Kamaru, setting up his kicks correctly and all that. But then you've got Colby, who, what do we have to go on? He's fought Jorge Masvidal, who went out with a whimper, or he fought Tyron Woodley, which we love Tyron Woodley, but, and then Robbie Lawler, who just recently retired this year. So Colby has just nothing in my mind to stand on to say he's confidently going to win this. I lean Leon Edwards pretty heavily, if it's not noticeable from the way I'm speaking about this fight. But
do you not think Colby has success with his wrestling offense?
I think he does, but people are trying to say online that Leon doesn't have good defense, but he's shown he's up there. He's very good. I think to say Leon can't handle Colby is wrestling is pretty wild.
Look, he's athletic. He's built like a brick shit house. He's
the best build in the division. In the whole UFC.
Yeah. The amount of times I got to see people talk about his physique.
He's sexy,
man.
Dylan.
The amount of time I got to hear people talk about his anime physique, man, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Look, he is super athletic, and his wrestling defense is probably his most improved part of his game, because he's always had that incredible Muay Thai style. But like I said, the Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup is not one that you see overly often. And I don't know how many times Leon's fought that before. I'm sure he's trained a ton of it. But it does negate a few of Leon's best shots, which I do think plays into this quite a lot. Because if you can't land those shots and Colby's getting in on the hips, which Colby does do and Leon does allow people to get to his hips, then I think there's an avenue that Colby takes him down. I don't think he subs him because he never looks for the neck. He's got him against the cage. He'll just look to sort of pitter-patter at him.
Ground and pound.
So I think if there's a finish on any side, it's Leon TKOing him. But I think Colby's got a clear path to victory by decision as well. So, look, fun fight. I think it's a fun fight. I don't know. It's got the potential to be a bit of a weird one. Like if Colby has his way, it's probably a little bit of a snoozer. But I suppose it doesn't matter.
You make a great point with the southpaw versus southpaw, because there is a lot of discussion in that. Like when you're a southpaw fighter, you get to fight orthodox so much that you're so used to fighting it. When you go against someone who's southpaw, you're immediately like, how do I win? How do I fight this style? Because you're just not used to it. Another southpaw fighter, because they are so rare. This is why it's good to be over in the Asia side of the world, where a lot of them fight southpaw naturally. But there's a lot of issue there. I could see, you're right. There probably is more win for Colby if Leon Edwards is standing there, kind of shaking, going, I don't know what to do. How do I kick his legs?
And if you remember that second Usman fight, the way that Leon won that fight really was off his rear leg kick, whether it was to the knee or to the body. That was his main weapon. And if he doesn't have that here, I'm sort of like, he's not going to be able to land it as effectively. Can he land that big power shot in the feet? Potentially. Colby can be hittable, but Colby's also weird, and he throws some weird angles, and he's got the chance to land on Leon as well, but he doesn't have the power. So it's a strange little fight.
Back and forth.
Yeah, it's a strange old fight to me, to be honest with you. I think it's close. I think Leon deserves to be the favourite, but I think Colby's at a clear path to victory, and that's enough to make me go, I'll probably just stay away from this one.
Yeah, I mean he's on the bingo card for like the three champions, white trash champions, and Sean Strickland, Sean O'Malley, and Colby. So if you want to get bingo, we've got to get him a win here at the end of the year. But do I think it's going to happen? I'm not too sure. I really like Leon, man. I've got to go with him, and I think it's just
how does he win?
It's just going to be a good 2 out of 3 for that bingo card, I reckon.
How does he win?
The thing is, I think this will be a long fight. I don't think he knocks him out early. Colby has endurance, but similar to Leon, or not similar to Kamaru, I think he's more open as the fight goes on. And I think Leon is more sharp, and so I think as the fight gets to the 4th and 5th, we could be seeing another knockout from Leon in a similar pattern to, your Kamaru Usman, where he just tags him when he's not expecting it, when his hands are down and he's tired and he's just kind of trying to find it. He could head kick him again, I'm sure they're practicing that in the Chaos Covington camp, but
if he gets hit by that, I'll eat my hat, mate, honestly.
Yeah, I think if he gets another head kick knockout, we're on for a champ of all time.
I think if it goes into rounds 4 and 5, I think it's all Colby. Like I think with the pace and the pressure that Colby will put on him, I really do think Leon will slow down. So I think if Leon finishes, it's probably round 1, 2, 3. But that's not to say that Leon couldn't win a decision, obviously, as well. But anyway, we're going to see how this. We're going to see how this fight plays out. I think there's a multitude of angles, and I'm really keen to see it play out. So. I'm also just keen to see how they face off at the press conference, size, all that kind of stuff as well.
That almost you could make a whole video on, really, because like the ideas behind that presser is insane. Is he going to go in a ton on Leon? Is he going to, what does he have to say about him? Like is he going to talk about he's probably going to talk about, England and coming from, European country. He's definitely gonna make fun of England. But he's also got, like Paddy there too to make fun of from England as well. So it's definitely probably smart for Colby to go in on it. You could almost do an analysis on what you predict Colby will say, because he's got so many avenues of bullying on this presser. I think the flyweights on the co-main are just fully safe here. They'll sit there and sit back and say nothing but nice things about each other, I reckon.
I reckon you're right. All right, I'm going to throw you under the bus quickly. All right, best bet. Best bet. What are you locking in?
It's got to be Shavkat Rakhmonov by probably sub, man. I think that's the most likely way he wins. Stephen Thompson isn't a quitter by any means, but can he get pushed into a corner and submitted? Yes. And I think that's got to be the best bet. Not for money. Not for money. If we're going for money, I'd go something different. Like, I don't know, maybe like a Brandon Royval KO, but I think for money, not for money, for actual, actual percentage chance to happen, it's got to be Rakhmonov, submitting.
Yep, spot on. I agree completely.
You agree?
I think Shavkat's probably the safest play on this card.
Give us another one, Dylan.
Oh, fuck. After that, I mean, who else do I really like?
Put you on the spot. I'll throw you under, mate.
Yeah. No worries. Other than that, let's look down the list a bit. Probably... I mean, it's not even a Paddy Pimblett play. It's more of a Tony Ferguson fade, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't see that losing, but I'm not going to play it because it's ugly. Best or favorite underdog on the card?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
What do you got?
Well, favorite underdog, I would probably say, because of how much I gassed him up, probably Vicente Luque.
Fair enough.
I think I like him. I think he's got a very good chance to exploit Ian Garry. Like I've said before, I won't dribble on too long, but he's definitely got a chance to expose Ian Garry and take strength in the weaknesses that Ian Garry has leading up to this, because I think this is the worst fight week probably leading up to Ian Garry's fight, like a fight that Ian Garry has had in any fight ever, and it's on par. It could be a second, Israel Adesanya type level of cloudiness going into a fight. And
like John Jones hit a pregnant woman and probably got it easier than this.
Yeah, John Jones did it way better than that. So. But yeah, we'll see how that goes, because it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm going with, I think Raw Dog for me. I think if you just want a fighter that's going to fight for your money, I think you got to go Royval. We've got a unit on him already, so I'm going to be keen to just watch it play out. But yeah, I think in terms of chance of winning or willingness to win, Royval for me.
Bryce Mitchell a favourite as well?
Yeah, quite a big one. I think he's about minus 200.
Good. I thought so. I was just making sure, because if he was an underdog, I'd ride that. That'd be a stupid underdog.
Do you have a favourite sort of prop lean for the card? So like someone by a submission or like a round or anything like that?
Not on hand at the moment. I think if anything, I was going to throw
you under the bus.
Yeah, you did throw me there. Prop plays are not where I make my money, but Bryce Mitchell probably, again, speaking on him, I think is a submission. Yeah,
I think I think that was plus 300.
Yeah. Or it's Shavkat Rakhmonov by sub in the first round, probably. Like that wouldn't be a bad one.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see it round 2 or 3. That'd probably be a little bit better on the price, but
definitely, yeah.
That's why it's so easy, and why it's so low is usually the first round. For these fighters is easier, so Shavkat might find him in that first.
Yeah, like that. I've almost finished all my tape for the card.
Okay, good.
The two biggest odds that I can find that I've sort of written down, not necessarily sure I'm going to play them like this, but definitely two to look at. I've got early on in the card, second fight, Shamil Gaziev. I've got him via sub at plus 900. I think is a very, very good price for something I think is very live.
Yeah, and then bit of a dog, isn't he?
Yeah, a little bit of an underdog. And then we've got Brian Kelleher inside the distance is plus 315. And then if you want to take the prop line separate, you've got Kelleher sub, which is plus 850, which I think is probably more likely than a TKO. But you've got TKO as well, which is plus 75, or you can just join him inside the distance to get 315. I think they're pretty juicy prices.
I'd also like to touch on, just for a second, Alonzo Manifield versus Dustin Jacoby. That's also on, and Alonzo is the underdog for that, and I don't know how to feel about that. I think it makes sense with Jacoby's, background, and he's stood some banger fights. But yeah, Alonzo being the underdog when he's got such a high finish rate, and Jacoby's had such a bad go at the last, couple fights. I'm not sure about this fight, man. I think Alonzo's definitely somewhere there, in that fight where he can find it to end it. And I think, that's a wild betting, odd there. Yeah,
I haven't got too much interest on that fight, to be honest. I think it's just a little bit too much volatility there for me.
100%.
Like Manifield, you just never know what you're going to get from him. Could come out here and starch him, could wrestle him for a few rounds. but he's got the gas tank issues. Jacoby's a pretty good kickboxer. He's got to keep in range. So it could be ugly and just jab his face off for 3 rounds. I don't know. Not overly confident either side. But yeah, I don't hate Menafield as an underdog play for sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, have you got anything else you want to chat about before we wrap this one?
Not too much. Hope for a good presser.
I think bit of housekeeping before we wrap.
Yep.
I think so. We were just chatting today. We're going to be doing some content while the UFC's off because obviously this is the last card of the year.
Yep.
So there'll be some more content from us coming. We're going to do our 2020, 4 predictions for next year. Some, different stuff around that. So the podcast will continue while the UFC itself is off. So that'll be good. Looking forward to that. Other than that, come over. The Discord link will be in the description. Make sure you come and join that and talk on the night of the fights. I'm actually meeting up with a few guys from the Discord group on Sunday to watch 296 down in Melbourne, which should be fun. So might see some stuff come of that. But yeah, looking forward to meeting a few different people. And you got anything else to add before we wrap?
Just definitely have chats over in Discord. It's growing by the day, getting bigger and bigger. Love it over there. It's a lot of fun. We're always constantly talking, making extra plays, prop plays in the middle of the card. When it goes on. So definitely get over there and chat with everybody. And that's pretty much it. Yeah,
there is a good community building over there, which I like. It's sort of it's tight knit at the moment, which is good for me. Like I don't mind it being a little bit smaller but good quality, which is I enjoy it. There's some cool stuff coming. Met Jack Jenkins last week, which was really cool.
Throw that out there. Sly one. Sly one. Little sly throw out there. Hey.
Yeah.
Met Jack Jenkins.
Yeah, it was super cool. It was just an awesome experience. You be in this, you be around this sort of circle for so long, making content, and then you think nothing of it, and then one day a fighter reaches out and you meet him, and anyway, things just move moving
fast.
Things just move quickly, and it just goes to show you what doing something you enjoy and love and putting your heart into can sort of what can sort of happen. So I encourage everyone to get out there and make a fool of themselves and do what they like. So it's just really cool, and I feel very blessed. So anyway, enough of the soft shit. If you like what we're doing here, as always, please like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a rating over there. Other than that, I'm just keen to. So I'm a little bit burnt out, if I'm honest with you. We've had some bad results in the last couple of weeks with betting.
Yeah, that's unlucky.
It's had I don't even know if there's a lot of bad reads, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of bad variance, and it's been a bad few weeks. Probably my worst betting run in history, which I'm disappointed to end on. But I'm also keen to sort of review and wrap and get on to next year and sort of see what we did wrong, and then reassess and make next year a better one. But
it always happens.
Yeah,
you go through dips, valleys, and mountains.
It's hard with the UFC too, man. This sport's on every weekend, more or less. You got to you've only got 5 days to research fights, make your plays, inform your team and subscribers, and look, it can be a lot at some points, but that's the beauty of it as well. It's never ending, which I do love. But anyway, I'm a little bit burnt out, but I'm keen to get on to next year and start afresh and make it even better. So I'm keen to grow this podcast as well. You're killing it on the mic. You're looking much more comfortable being in front of the camera instead of behind it.
So thrown under the bus as much.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm loving it, mate. We're growing something cool, and thanks to everyone who's been watching and chatting in the Discord and stuff like that. If you, like I said, if you want to join the Discord, the link will be in the description. Again, quick plug, shout out to the sponsor, providepicks.com/join. If you want to head over there and read some more info. But as always, that's thanks for tuning into the Beautiful Violence podcast, the number one spot for the number one sport. And I guess this is us signing off for the last event of 296. It won't be the last you see of us this year, but for the last event, we hope you have a good one. Luque, anything?
No, that's it. Thank you guys for watching.
Love it. All right, see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.